So Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is a game that released November 15th in 2008. I just played it on PlayStation 3. It's developed by Midway and it was distributed by Warner Bros. So I'll tell you the objectively great aspects of this game. So objectively, it has an intriguing premise and an intriguing story. It also features some of the best facial work and animations done and lip syncing from the 2008 era. Otherwise, though, this game is pretty trash. The story, it's very intriguing. It is a very intriguing concept that is poorly written. It's poorly presented. The writing is subpar because it's literally a 2 to 2.5 hour game where you can play on either or side between Mortal Kombat's characters or the DC characters. And so if you play through the whole entire story as a whole, you'll get maybe 4 hours total on the easiest out of the whole story. But honestly, the story itself is written poorly in that they didn't flesh anything out. They didn't flesh the story out. They didn't flesh the characters out. Both sides of the story are 8 chapters long, and it focuses on you playing one character in each chapter. And they tried to give character development within people randomly blasting in, getting a couple lines of dialogue, and then you fight them, and then you break them, and then rinse and repeat for about 3 or 4 matches after that in the same chapter. And then you get a new chapter and a new character that features new enemies, and it's just a rinse repeat 16 total chapter of a story where the story is essentially a linear storyline. It's not like, it's a very intriguing premise that was nowhere near fleshed out the way it should be. It wasn't really fleshed out at all. It was just a story that was point A to point B with no variance in gameplay, writing, character development, anything. It's not really great at all. The gameplay of Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is basically your typical generic 2D/3D fighter, side-scroller fighter. And the problem I have with the gameplay is it's okay for an average gamer to have fun. Okay, that's fine. It's also broken gameplay. I have many videos on my phone where I was recording myself playing the game where all I did was press the kick button over and over and over and over. And if you're able to do that and still beat somebody while holding a phone up and playing the game and win the whole thing, that should tell you that the gameplay is broken. Visually, this game doesn't look terrible. It looks consistent. The frame rate is smooth. The graphics are average at best. I would say average to very underwhelming. So right there in that gray area where it's nowhere near even good. It's just kind of adequate. It's manageable, but not really good. It's subpar mostly. This game doesn't force the tutorial on you. You basically have to find it yourself, and the presentation, the options, everything is just kind of minimal. Like they could have implemented so many more features, so many more written dialogue scenes, so many more everything. This is a very half-baked mess. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is a very half-baked mess. And even with it releasing in 2008, I still would have said all of this objectively and subjectively. And if you go through my past reviews, you'll see I have been reviewing games set and released in 2008 and above. And ultimately, for me, it's not a terrible game. It's just such a mediocre to below average game that it just feels like a terrible game. It plays badly. Like it's smooth controls, it's smooth gameplay, but the gameplay itself is very repetitious, and that's my problem with fighter games. I'm not good at fighting games, and what I can say is I had fun playing this game. But having fun and objectively dismantling and breaking down the gameplay elements and aspects of a game are two very, very different things that most people misconstrue and combine together. Objectively speaking, this game is pretty terrible. It's not even average gameplay wise, story wise. Everything about Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is very, very mediocre to very below average. And like I said, I don't mind fighting games. I suck at them. But at least with like Injustice 2, it had such a great detailed tutorial to where Injustice 2 I sucked in it, but I had a lot of fun with it. It was very smooth and the tutorial was so in-depth. Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, you kind of have to just find everything yourself. It's a one click, but you still, like, nothing really prompts itself to you. So overall for me, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe is a 4 out of 10. It is very underwhelming. It's an average game that you would just wish so much more would be in it. Everything is just so done so mediocrely. It's built off of mediocrity. It's a poor example of a fighting game. So Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, again for me, is a 4 out of 10. Thank you. Please subscribe and or like this video if you enjoyed this video. Thank you.